And we'll go ahead and share the screen so I don't forget later. Not that I would ever forget to share my screen. All right, welcome everybody to Civil Chat. It is February, finally. Hopefully it's not too terribly cold where y'all are at. Let's see, it is about almost above freezing here. So it's a good day for shorts and a short sleeve shirt. So welcome. If you are new here, we're super excited to see you here. If you've been here for a while, whatever. I'm not talking to you guys. This is Civil Chat. This is your opportunity to ask questions. I will do my best to answer them, as well as Brian and Brian. We will do our best to answer any questions that you all have. And the way this works is you ask the questions, we answer them. If you don't ask questions, we'll talk about stuff like top secret and bottom secret, what I should put on my walls, what the weather's like, all sorts of super exciting, helpful stuff that'll help you advance your career. So with that, make sure that you type your questions into the Q&A, please. The chat is a great place to go to harass, to talk to folks. But if you have questions, please put them in the Q&A instead. Where's my Q&A? There it is. All right, so nobody has put any questions in yet. So if you ask a question, there's a really good chance that it'll get answered. All right. Now, with that, I always try to show off something in Civil 3D that I found throughout the month or that I think is cool. And I finally found a use for a setting in Civil 3D that I thought I would never find a use for. So I was in this drawing here, and I had to go through and I had to change everything for a different text type. So as you can see, I've got contour labels in here, but we've got more than one contour label style. So you can see we've got some user-defined contours and we've got some non-user defined contours. And I wanted to make sure that I was able to go through and change all of the styles that were being used in this drawing. And this isn't my drawing, so I didn't know what styles were actually used, but I could see the styles in the drawing. So what I did is I came over here to the settings tab, surface, label styles, etc. You guys know how to change things on things. And I know that this particular style here, so if I select it and then I go to my properties, you can see it's using the style GEI Survey Topo. So I went into the GEI Survey Topo and I edited it and I made the change that I needed to make. It doesn't really matter what the change was for this, but I changed it to the new value that I needed. And then what I did is I came over to the General tab and I took the label visibility and I set it to false. And that way, it's no longer being displayed on the screen. And so that label style was done. I don't have to mess with it anymore because I've already finished it. And I can go find the other one. So here's another label style that I need to adjust. Again, I can go to the properties and you can see this is the, yeah, it looks, I select a different one. Come on, this should be the, sorry. So this is a surface user contour. So it's using this GEI Survey Topo user defined. So again, I came into the style, I made the change, whatever it was, and then I came back over to the General tab, changed the label visibility. So this turns on and off the visibility of the entire label. You can turn visibility on and off for individual components within the label, and I've seen lots of reasons for doing this, but I never figured out a good reason to turn off the entire visibility of the entire label. So I changed that to false. And then I looked at my drawing, I realized, hey, those are all the label styles that I needed to fix. And now I just need to turn the visibility back on. Now I could go back into all of those different styles that I changed the visibility for, right? Or I can do it in mass. Now there's 3 different levels I could do it at. I could do it for the drawing. So I could change every single label style in this drawing so that it is visible. I could do it at the feature. So I could change all of the surface label styles so that they're visible, or I can do it at this label, I don't know, category, so to speak. So contours. Any of these, you just right click on it and edit the label style defaults. So under the label, is where we have the label visibility. As you can see, the default value is set to true. However, there are styles that are overriding the settings for the child. So I go ahead and click on that, and what that will do is that will cancel the child override. So any label style where the label visibility was set to false will now be set to true. I hit OK, and magically, all my labels come back on. And I'm back to where I was, but now I've made sure to change all those visibilities. So that was kind of the first thing I wanted to show. The next thing I wanted to show is something that I ran across, so helping a coworker. And this is dealing with simplifying surfaces. So I've got this surface here, and I need to simplify this surface. So he was dealing with a massive surface that had like, I want to say like 36 million points in it. And I worked with him to figure out, I showed him how to simplify it down to around 900,000 points, because that's really the most I ever like to see a surface at. But anyways, the problem is he came back to me actually just this morning saying, hey, why is my surface that I simplified so choppy? And I'm like, I don't know. Let's take a look at it. And what had happened is he'd actually simplified the surface twice. So he'd gone through and removed 97% of the points, which got him down to around 900,000 points. And then he went through and removed 97% of the points again. And I'm like, and this is a smart guy. He wouldn't have done that intentionally. So he did something that caused the simplify surface to be added in again. And I finally figured it out just this morning. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to come over here to my prospector tab, surfaces, etc. And I'm going to click on edits here. So a simplify surface is an edit, and you'll see the list of edits down here. So what he did, why are you, can you see this Align Super Elevation 1 on your screen?
Yeah, we can.
Okay. Oh, it just went away. Okay, good. Okay. Maybe that was a tooltip. I don't know what the hell it was. Anyways, so under edit surfaces, simplify surface, he came in here and said, okay, I'm going to do edge contraction. Great. The region, I'm going to use the existing surface boundary. Chose next. What percentage do you want to apply this to? I want to do the whole thing. And then he came down here and hit apply. And went through and simplify, and he says, great, I'm done. I'm going to go ahead and finish. And what you'll notice is it applied the simplify surface twice.
You hit apply and then you hit finish. It does it twice.
Yep.
That's
right.
kind of
Which
irritating.
is just silly, in my opinion. Right. And this brings up the whole apply and okay thing that it's one of my pet peeves. It's not that big of a deal. It's just one of my pet peeves. So what he should have done is just hit next, next, and then either hit finish or hit apply and then cancel. Because when you hit apply in a dialog box, what it does is it says, let me apply the changes that I've made to the object. And then when you hit finish, what it does is it says, let me apply the changes I've made to the dialog box to the object and then close it. And so that's why it applied twice. So if I simply hit finish without hitting apply, I get the simplify surface just once. All right.
Yeah, so you're
Is it a bug? Is it a feature? Is it an oversight?
Don't hit a.
I don't know.
Well, I think it's the fact that that's a living dialog box, right? So it's saying, hey, I want to do this. When you hit apply, you're doing it, but it's not like something where you change the setting, you hit apply, but that setting still remains, and you're just closing the dialog. There's probably other bugs in other programs that do the same thing, because that's a Windows kind of a setting. Hey, this is something I'm going to do a tool, but I can do it again and again and again. And yeah, that's just hilarious. And I'm like you. I hate it when people hit apply and then they hit OK. It's like just one or the other. You don't need to do both.
Right. So what's the difference? So let me go to the settings here, and I haven't actually checked to see what label style this is. What label style is this using? Parallel with tick, looks like. Okay, cool. So I'm going to go to alignment, label styles, station, major station, parallel with tick. And I'm going to talk about why sometimes I do hit apply and not OK. So if I'm in a dialog box, right? So I'm in this dialog box and I'm making some changes and I want to see the changes in the drawing, that's where apply comes into play. Right? So as you can see, there is no decimal point on these labels. So I can come in here, right? change the precision. And so I'll select this over here, change the precision. Don't forget to hit the silly little unlabeled white arrow to actually make your changes. Gotta hate that thing. All right, and then okay. And what I can do is I can simply hit apply and now see the changes in the drawing. Like, oh, that's not quite right. Let me go make some other changes, hit apply. That's getting closer, make some other changes, hit apply, and I'm good to go. And then I can hit okay. Right. So that's where I would hit apply. But what I really despise seeing people, and I shouldn't say despise, it's just annoying, is people will constantly hit apply and then immediately just go over and hit okay.
Yes.
Yeah,
Yes.
you don't need to. So let's talk about these three buttons here. And you'll see okay, cancel, apply all over the place in Windows. I've made a change to this thing. Apply will take those changes and apply them to whatever the dialog box is referencing. In this case, an alignment label, and keep you in the dialog box. Cancel, I've made some changes here. I hit cancel and it just ignores those and goes back to the way it was last saved. Okay is exactly the same as hitting apply and then hitting cancel. So when you make a change, just hit okay. You don't have to apply and then okay.
Tom said rename does the same thing. If you hit apply and then you hit OK, the OK is trying to apply the spell check, the rename, and it's like you've already done this. I'm going to fail and give you an error dialog box. So there is another one that just is like, hey, I'm trying to do it again. Oh, but I can't because you've already renamed it. So never mind, we're done.
Yeah, and so this is actually the first time I've ever run across this being an issue, but I'm like you said, I'm sure there are other places that this could come up. But I just never hit apply. I just always hit okay, or in the case of simplifying a surface, just hit finish.
Yeah, I don't even think apply should be there in that simplify surface. It should just say okay, or you should have an apply and cancel, one of the two.
Yep. Yep, I totally agree.
I also hate the fact that I have to tell people that the X in the dialog box is the same as cancel.
Right.
So people change a value, then they hit the X like a stupid program. It won't apply any. Look, I'm going in, I'm making changes, and I'm closing the dialog box. Like, no, you're canceling the dialog box, not closing it.
Yeah. So another thing, just real quick, if I'm making some changes to a style in Civil 3D and I want to see the changes in the drawing when I hit apply, make sure that's the only dialog box you have. So for example, I don't like this precision. So again, I'm going to select this label. I'm going to go edit label group. It brings up this dialog box. And in this dialog box, I can choose the style. So I can come over here and say, hey, I want to edit this style. I go in, I make the change. All right, I'm going to change it back to a precision of 0. So just to the 1, no decimal. Hit this silly little unlabeled arrow, hit OK. And now when I hit apply, you'll notice the changes, I can't see them in the drawing. Why? Because I'm not applying them to the drawing. What I'm applying them to is this dialog box here. So what I would have to do is I'd have to hit OK, and then OK. And then within this dialog box, I can then hit apply. And you'll see the changes. So make sure that's the only dialog box you've got active if you want to see those changes in the canvas as you're working. All right, so those are a couple of things I wanted to throw out before we get started while we're waiting for all of our questions to come in.
Yeah, looks like we got a good list of questions. And I also had one thing to add. The day after you did Civil Chat last month, there was an update for Civil 3D 2024. So 2024 is now on 0.4.2. So for those of you out there who don't keep track of that, and none of my clients ever do, I thought I'd let everybody know that there is a 24.4.2 update. Nothing for 25, just 24.
Okay, good to know. Yeah, we're not on 24, so that one kind of slipped under my radar. But thanks for pointing that out.
Sure. All right, so Greg, since you have that first drawing you had opened, the 0.08 height drawing, I said, looking at your open drawing, is there a mandate that we have to include the 811 stamp on a drawing?
Oh, the 811 stamp?
Yeah.
I don't know. This would all depend upon the municipality you're working, what type of work you're working on. I would check with your project manager to see if it's required. This particular drawing is one that I just kind of stole and was doing some testing in, so this isn't an actual drawing that I would recommend that you would use for anything. So don't look at this as an example of what we should be doing. I was changing text height so we could see how they work because we're considering changing our default text height here at GEI. Because so much is going digital, we're trying to make it a little bit smaller to see if we can make things a little bit easier to work in. So as far as 811 stamps go, it depends on your municipality, what part of the world you're in, and the project that you're working on. So I would rather see it on there and not need it, but I mean, there's no reason to put an 811 stamp on a drawing if all you're doing is, showing drainage patterns, because you're not going to be digging. So it all depends.
Since you brought up the fact that we're all in a digital world and most of this is getting read on PDFs, I always have a question. Like, I have created some stuff in my Revit workflow where I then have like 1/256 of an inch height text underneath my name tag that has a whole bunch of additional data. Because if you're in a PDF, you can zoom in and see that. If you print it, you won't ever see it. But so I keep sitting there wondering, since we have infinite zoom on this stuff, at what level do we start adding more data to these labels, these tags? Because we can zoom in and see it rather than have to go flip some 6 drawings away to find that same data.
That's a great idea. So when you first started talking about this, I thought you were going to say, I don't want them to be able to see that, but you're talking just the opposite. It's the information you do want to put in there so they can see it just by simply zooming in.
But if somebody prints it, they won't see it because it's such a small piece of text that'll look like the line will be illegible. But nobody's, on projects like this, most of the people are looking at this on PDF now anyway. So rather than have somebody flip to a 16 pages later where we call that out later, why can't we add some of that data to these labels that we're putting in there currently?
Yeah, that's a great question. The other alternative to that would be like a hyperlink.
Right.
So you can just click on it and it takes you to that page 16 pages later. But then you're on that page and not on the page you were on.
Yeah, I know. It's something that I bring up to all my clients because I don't do real projects. So, and it's kind of like, why not put the data there? Everybody's looking at this on PDFs. Everybody has infinite zoom. That will come in just fine.
I guess the only thing that I would say is if it's important data, it might get missed because you didn't zoom in on it.
Well, no, but you still have it in the other locations. So, right. So like for me, obviously I'm not civil. I do the architectural stuff. On the door, I still have door 101, but below that door, I can tell you what hardware is on it, what the fire rating is, all this other stuff in really small text. There's still a door schedule 16 pages later that says 101 is XYZ, but I can put that stuff down there as well. I mean, I understand not everybody's it's going to be printable, and a lot of people are going to use it, but for those contractors who are using the PDFs and taking advantage of it, you're making their life easier.
Right. The other drawback I can think to doing that, and it's not as big a deal with a program like Revit, is the duplication of data. So if you have data in multiple locations and you change it in one location, you have to remember to go change it in the other places.
Understood. But Revit with an area like this, where you're extracting those contour elevations or whatever data you're doing on that from a live element, you're never putting dumb text in there. So since you're doing that, why not show it in multiple locations?
Yeah,
maybe
it's a very interesting thought. Ian did ask about what's an 811 stamp. That's our utility locate number here in the U.S. So if I go to our 811 blocks, right? So for example, for Colorado, assuming this project was in Colorado, we have a stamp here. It's a call before you dig type of a thing. So that's instead of 911, where that's our emergency number. 811 is to call the utility locate company so that you can get them out there before you start digging and hit a gas line and blow up half of the neighborhood. So
we do the same thing in Washington, and no, not blow up half the neighborhood. We put in the 811.
So shouldn't that be called a CBD label? Call before you dig.
CBD. Okay, I gotcha.
Yes, that was also the play in Colorado. CBD oils. Yeah. No.
Yeah. Is that a tincture or what is that?
So okay, cool. Any other questions? What do we got next?
Okay, so the next question is from a user group this morning. Tool space drawing settings, object layers tab of suffix with an underscore asterisk will add the alignment name to the layer name for the alignment and label creation. How can this be accomplished with parcels and their labeling to be on a layer name that includes the parcel name? From the testing I did, the layer uses the site name, not the parcel name. Any suggestions on some way to automate this?
That's a great question. Let me open up a drawing that has some parcels in it. I don't know if we'd be able to do that. Right, so if I select this parcel here, you can see it's on the layer C-prop. That's the layer the parcel is on. I don't know of a way to set it for the object name for parcels. Because yeah, you're right. So if I go into the settings tab here, edit drawing settings, object layers, is there a parcel label in here? There probably is. Parcel labeling, right now it's defaulting to layer 0, right? But if I put a suffix, what do you say, underscore asterisk?
That's what it looks like.
Yeah. So basically what's going on here is you assign a layer for the object. So in this case, a parcel label. And you can see in this particular drawing, which is one of the tutorial drawings that comes with Civil 3D, it's defaulting to layer 0. And then I'm going to put a suffix, which is something that goes after the layer name of an underscore asterisk. And the asterisk will get replaced with the object's name. So if I hit OK here, and then we go through and relabel these. So if I select a parcel and I hit delete, I'm not deleting the parcel because you can't delete a parcel. I'm gonna have to go, let me just go create a new one here. And we'll go home, parcel, create parcel from objects. The site, I will create a new site here and I will call it site for testing labels, just so it's very obvious of the name of the site. And this label, if we do a search for testing, it did not show up. Okay, so it didn't put this on a layer. It's still on the C-prop layer. So maybe
did you hit apply and not okay? Sorry, couldn't
That's awesome. I loved it. I might have hit the X to cancel out of it. No, it's still there. So let's try the parcel itself.
I've never seen somebody actually try to add a prefix to 0 before.
Yeah, I know. It might be that, but no. So I'm thinking, so if we now go parcel, create parcel from objects, I'm just going to use that same site. So you can see this is now on the layer C-prop. Interesting. What layer is the segment on? C-prop-line. It doesn't seem to be working at all for me.
Is that a feature?
I wonder if it has something to do with the underscore. I've never done underscores. I've always just done dashes.
Well, the parcel says you got a modifier of none, right? So it's not.
Oh, did it? Oh, yeah. Thank you.
Yeah, yeah.
And Adam's saying that label is part of the parcel. Is part of the parcel. Try adding an area label option to add another area label to it.
I'll try that as well. Parcel, create parcel from objects. See, this is why I keep you guys around. Now you can see it's on the layer C-prop-site for testing label. So it does pick up on the name of the site rather than the name of the parcel itself. Is there a way to get it to use the parcel name for the layer? I don't think so. Can I put a parcel on a different layer?
No, because the parcel naming that fluctuates as you're creating, right?
Yeah, it's
And
constantly
especially if you
changing.
rename. Yeah, it's constantly changing. I think for our benefit to protect ourselves from ourselves, they didn't allow that to happen.
That's a good point.
Otherwise, you would have so many superfluous layers. And I just like saying that because I like the Grinch. But you'd have so many different layers, it's ridiculous.
Right.
And Tom followed up saying alignment names can change too.
But we do that auto naming method a lot as well. And it works great.
Yeah, we don't, and I wish we did.
And you don't even have to have the layer in there.
Yeah, in our template, all of our surfaces, right? We don't use any of those modifiers, which I find to be super annoying.
Oh, yikes.
Yep.
So if you freeze one alignment, all of them go away.
Yep.
Oh, that's super easy, super good.
Right.
What kind of ship you running there, Brian? No, just kidding. I know.
And I did not think you had a P in that word, so I thought you were really giving him crap.
I wouldn't say that about being recorded.
So yeah, I don't, as far as I know, there's not a way to do that, Tom. Yeah, it's all driven by the site. And Brian made a great point about, parcel names are, constantly changing as you're going through and laying out parcels. So I don't know of a way to do that, unfortunately.
Tom's follow-up said you have to manually change those layers if set to separate layers, ?
Yes.
Cool. And then John pointed out that you can, if your parcel styles are set to 0, you can move them. You said you can't move parcels?
You can put parcels on different layers, yeah. So if the label is constructed using layer 0, then it will inherit the property of the new layer the parcel is on. So yeah.
Yeah, everybody, before all that, everybody was suggesting Dynamo.
That might work. So I want to talk a little bit about parcels here because parcels are weird. Parcels are a defined object, right? So what I'm going to do is I'm going to draw another polyline over here, right? So I'm going to come over here and I'm going to draw this in really, really close so it doesn't actually close, right? So when I come up here to home, parcel, create parcel from objects, this is a misnamed command, right? You cannot create a parcel in Civil 3D. I don't care what anybody tells you. It's not something you can do. This command does not create a parcel. What it does is it creates parcel segments, right? So when I choose create parcel from objects and I select this polyline here, right? I go through and I set those settings. I select OK. There is no parcel in this area. A parcel is defined when parcel segments enclose an area. So if I come in here and I grip edit this, so it matches that endpoint. So now it closes in on itself. You can see there is now a parcel here. All right, so parcels are defined objects. I'm going to draw a polyline across here. And again, I'm going to go parcel, create parcel from objects. What I'm doing is I'm creating a parcel segment. And when I select this and I hit OK, what it's going to do is it's going to make that into a parcel segment. And it will now define 2 separate areas as parcels. So I select OK, and now I have a parcel up here to the north and a parcel down here to the south.
Yeah, great.
So parcels are defined objects. So it's just something to keep in mind as you're working with parcels. So just since we're talking about parcels, I wanted to throw that out.
All righty. So question from Greg. How do you set the default layers for Civil 3D labels? People in my group want the labels to automatically set the layer even when they are adding a gray existing label and then set a different layer for the proposed labels. I told them that these layer settings are not that granular, but they still whine about it. I then tell them just to learn manually set the layer and move on. Am I wrong?
Nope, you're 100% right.
Yeah.
Or you can tell them to go into the object layer list and change the layer that it goes on whenever they're changing their layering methodology from existing to proposed.
So that's one option.
Yeah, ask them how they did it before. Sorry. Yeah. Give a moose a muffin, right?
So
They'll
the
want.
other option is to use your styles to control the layers. So if I go into and I'll do this for a surface, so label styles, we'll just do a spot elevation here, right? If I go edit this on the general tab, you'll see a layer. So you can assign a layer to the label style. Now the label itself will still go on whatever the default layer is, right? So in our drawing, it's a C dash OBJ dash something, right? That's the way we do it here. It's GEI. But then within the label itself, the different components will then go on to this. This is kind of like a line work within a block being on a
Yep.
layer, and then the block itself being on a separate layer.
And
Same concept here.
Yep.
So this will control the display of the components within the label, but then the layer that the label is on, if this was set to 0, it would then inherit that same concept as a block. So that's the other alternative.
Yep.
So you could get your labels to be gray, but you couldn't turn off just the gray labels.
Sure, you can. You would just turn off this layer.
Yep.
For the existing.
And
then my proposed would be on a different layer, and I could turn those off if I want, or I could change the color of it, or the plot style of it, or whatever.
Yeah, so all of your the label style itself would be pointing to layer 0, but the label style would then be pointing to a layer that you wanted to go on. So you would then need to duplicate every style you had for your proposed equivalently for existing.
Mm-hmm.
And then if there was a change to your standard, you would have to go and double up and find all of the changes and make that change. Or the people can just learn to change layers.
Right. So this is what we've done. We've got labels for our design and labels for our existing or our survey.
Yep.
Right. So if I come in here and I edit this label style, you can see where this is since this is a bathymetric label, it's a C dash bathymetric dash annotation dash label. For our design topo, etc. And then, remember how I said that child thing? Because these are set as a child, if I change the property of this one, it will change for this one, unless this one overrode the parent. Which in this case is just a precision.
I do want to point out something really quick. If you are in a company that has just basic AutoCAD users and Civil 3D users, using the method that Brian just showed about putting all the labels on layer 0 and then assigning a layer to the label itself, when the individual tries to go and isolate that layer through an XREF, if the labels are in the XREF, it'll prove to almost be impossible for a basic AutoCAD user, because they'll never be able to find out what layer to freeze through the XREF to get rid of that label, because it'll keep freezing layer 0. So just a warning. Yeah.
And just to point out, I wasn't suggesting using layer 0. I was just that drawing was defaulting to layer 0.
Correct. Yeah. If you were wanting to do it in that fashion. Yeah. It's just with those inherent problems. People are like, why is it freezing everything? Yeah.
Right. Yeah.
You had 2 follow-up questions on your parcels, and you automatically switch back to that. So will you please show how you can delete a portion of that segment between those 2 parcels, which results in the segments outside of the current parcel remaining? So I think you want you to delete that parcel segment, but keep the cyan color and get rid of the magenta color.
Okay, so Tom, you want me to erase this purple piece, but keep the cyan pieces. Is that right?
That's how I interpreted it. So
waiting for a response from Tom.
Yes.
Yes. Okay. So the way I would do it is I would just grab that purple piece and then, oh, no, you can't do that. So it looks like you can. So here, let me show what I was trying to do. And I couldn't. All right. So this is just a polyline. And what I want to do is I want to erase this segment and this segment of the polyline. Right. But when I come in here and I select it, it grabs the whole thing. What I want to do, instead of it grabbing the whole thing, I want to grab just those 2, hit delete on my keyboard and be done with it. So how did I do that? Well, I held down the control key. So the control key toggles on your sub-entity selection, and you can select those individual pieces, hit delete, and you're good to go. With a parcel, it looks like you can do it. So when I mouse over this, the whole thing highlights, and when I hit my control key, you can see just that piece of it highlights. And by the way, the control key also does my little flashy circle thing. All right, so when I hold down the control key and I select it, it looks like just that piece is selected. And when I hit delete on the keyboard, it doesn't do anything. So unfortunately, this doesn't work. I believe if we go up to the modify tab, or actually if we just select it, right, we can edit geometry, and then I think we can trim a feature. All right, select the cutting edges, objects to trim, and there it is. So a lot of the feature line editing tools work on parcel segments too. So that's the approach I would take to accomplish that.
John also said you can use the grip edit tool.
Don't know how to use a grip edit on that one. I think maybe he was thinking just the opposite. If we wanted to keep the purple, we could grip edit those and bring those in. I think maybe that's what John was thinking.
Got it. Autocorrect feature trim.
Okay. Cool. Oh yeah. Great call, Adam. I can also select the parcel, go to the person. Where is it? It's been so long since I've dealt with parcels. Home, parcel creation tools, and then there is the delete sub-entity option as well. So I can come in here and then delete that sub-entity. Good call, Adam. Thank you for reminding me on that one.
And then Lisa asks, not Lisa. Someone else asked, I forget who. Why is it a challenge to delete parcels?
Oh, you can't. you just can't. Remember, a parcel is a defined object. A parcel is defined when parcel segments enclose an area, right? When parcel segments enclose an area, there is a parcel there. You cannot control that, right? So for example, this is a parcel because this parcel segment, this parcel segment, this parcel segment, and this parcel segment encloses this area. Therefore, there is a parcel there. That's the way it's defined. If I select this parcel and I hit delete, it does nothing. What I have to do is I have to edit the parcel segments to edit the parcels. So it behaves so much different than anything else in Civil 3D. So for example, this road. Well, I don't want this road to be a parcel. Why is it a parcel? Well, because parcel segments are enclosing the area. So don't let parcel segments enclose the area. So what I can do is I can get rid of this piece here, and now this is no longer being enclosed. So it's not defining a parcel.
Now, as Greg pointed out, I assume that parcel road is still there. So you have to use the command clear phantom parcels to get rid of that road parcel.
No, it's just not there.
Yeah, because Greg put in there clear phantom parcels.
I have no idea what clear phantom parcels is. That's a new one for me. Clear phantom parcels. 0 unused and hidden parcels were found. 0 unused and hidden parcels were removed. So I'm not sure what that command does. You're right, Mike. It definitely sounds like a cool command. My favorite command is convert line work to mask block. That's my favorite command, just because I think it sounds cool. Or that, or Batman. All right, what else we got, Brian?
Sean asked a question. Do you have any samples to share making raster images combined with the Civil 3D drawing? What is the advantage of raster versus JPEG versus TIFF?
So a JPEG and a TIFF are raster images, right? They're just different file formats for a raster image. So raster image is a generic term for an image, right? And basically what a raster is, it says this pixel is this color, and this pixel is this color, and this pixel is this color, and this pixel is this color. That's why we can use rasters for surface information. Rather than using color, we use elevation. So a raster that's an elevation model basically says this pixel is this elevation, and this pixel is this elevation, and this pixel is this elevation, etc. So that's why a DEM can be saved as a TIFF or Mr. SID file, etc. The advantage of the different file types, gosh, I'm not exactly sure. I know what the difference between like a bitmap or a BMP and a JPEG is. A BMP saves all that information, right? So a BMP says this pixel is this color, this pixel is this color, this pixel is this color, etc., for every single pixel in the entire image. Whereas a JPEG does some sort of a compression. So it'll say, hey, this pixel is this color, and so are the next 30,000 or the next 50. So instead of saving 50 pieces of data, it saves 3 pieces or 2 pieces of data. So that's how a JPEG is able to compress itself. As far as use within CAD, I don't know of a difference really, and that I've never really looked into. Is this one better? Is that one better? Or anything like that? That something you've ever looked into, Brian?
No,
Yeah.
I have not. No.
So I think most modern image compression formats are pretty comparable. So you're not going to see a whole lot of image file size difference. Um,
I
I know.
just know I cannot stand PDF. I'll convert everything to either a TIFF or a JPEG. Yeah.
Yeah, Simon, I was just gonna say Simon brought up a good point. When you're in Revit, you can't use GIFs and TIFFs. You have to use PNGs or JPEGs.
Yeah.
And a PNG can have a transparent background, a JPEG cannot.
Right. Some images can have geolocation information embedded into it, like a TIFF file or a JPEG 2000. Mr. SID file or a .sid file, I believe, can as well. And so if you use like the map image insert command with that image, it'll know where in the drawing it needs to be inserted. So that's an advantage of some of those things. But we can always use like a world file for images that don't have that capability to embed them directly into the image. So I'm not super knowledgeable on image file types, so hopefully that helps, but I've never really messed around with the different stuff.
So one thing Tom followed up with the clear phantom parcels, if you export to AutoCAD, for like a Revit user, if there are phantom parcels in, the Revit user will be like, hey, there's something over at 0, you're exceeding your 20-mile limitation, get out. So that's good to know. I will have to look at that and open up some of those civil files and Civil
Oh, good to know.
3D just to type in phantom parcels. Yeah.
So it sounds like it deals more with
Also purge
converting the file to AutoCAD. Okay.
Yeah, and purge vehicle tracking, he said, will do the same thing. So that's actually very interesting as a Revit user to know those two things.
Awesome. Good to know.
And he says you get that when you delete all parcel segments from a site, but not delete the site. That's when you will get phantom parcels.
Okay.
And that came from John.
Cool. Thanks, John.
All right. So Carrie had asked, unrelated, but any tips or tricks on working with the SheetSet Manager in 24 or SheetSet Manager for web?
As far as the different versions go, the SheetSet Manager really hasn't changed much since it came out. I'm trying to remember what year it came out.
AutoCAD 2004.
2004. That's right. We had this discussion a while back, didn't we? And then they made some changes in 2005, and it's pretty much stayed the same until they came out with the web version. I don't know of any things that they've changed since 2005. There might be some, but I'm not aware of them. It's stayed pretty much the same. And then we have the SheetSet Manager for web, which is, for projects that are up on the cloud. It's still a .dst file. It's still the same .dst file. Actually, I just ran into this yesterday. Somebody was plotting using the SheetSet Manager for web and noticed that some of the line work wasn't showing in the PDFs. And the reason is because the DST had the include layer information, and the layer was turned off in one drawing, turned on in the other drawing, and messed up in the PDF. And so it was off in all the drawings or in all the sheets. So one tip that I have found is if you need to make some changes to a DST, a sheet set that is up on the web, so using the SheetSet Manager for web, and you can't find how to get to those properties to make the change, copy it locally, open it up in the regular SheetSet Manager, make the changes there, and then move it back up to the cloud storage. That's one tip that I've got recently. Do you have anything else, Brian?
Yes. Where do I start? Yeah, we use SheetSet Manager. We're on ACC, so we use it a great deal. We don't use the web version, so we do the sheet set manager detect and turn it off. Your concept of modifying use was exactly what I told people. Since then, with the desktop connector being even more stable and faster, as long as you've got one person doing the modification at a time, there isn't an issue. The other, if you still have problems with multiple people trying to jump in, you go into ACC, you lock it. And when you lock it, only you can modify it. So you can just open it up plain Jane. You don't have to copy it down. You make the modification and do it. But what I will not do is do a rename of the .dwg using the sheet set manager. I will go in and make the change and then go into the sheet set manager and change the properties to look at the new drawing with the appropriate layout. The web version that you've got up right here is, as far as I know from Autodesk, this is specifically designed for their ACC.
Okay.
That I would not use this. I would turn the SSM detect mode off if you're only using sheet set manager on a regular at-home network.
Right. So, but if you got a project up on ACC, do you still use the sheet set manager for web, or do you not?
I'm starting to use more of the sheet set manager for web because I can publish things. I just can't modify it as easy as I could with the old native one.
Right.
And the other thing that you have to be careful of is that support file location that you have. You've got to have, if you've got any special line types, you need to have your company's line type file in there. You need to have the CTB or STB file there, along with any other page setup overrides that you use.
Right. So here's that sheet set manager detect mode that you were talking about, right?
Yes, sir. Yep.
Right. So if this is turned off, so it's set to 0, it'll always display the legacy sheet set manager, even if you open up a sheet set on the web.
Even if you open up, if you open it on the web's going to take over because you're actually on the web and you're not using AutoCAD or Civil 3D to open the sheet set manager. That's the purpose.
Right. That's what I mean. So I'm in Civil 3D and I open up a sheet set that's on the web in ACC.
Yep.
It'll still use the standard sheet set manager?
That is correct, yes. Okay. And you can manipulate and plot and add and do everything you could before on ACC, just as you do without the web interface. The nice thing about the web interface is this is allowing us now to access our entire plan set without even having a system that's got CAD on it from your phone and then publish an entire plan set while you're driving to your meeting off your phone.
Gotcha. So you're talking about accessing it through the Autodesk web.
That's correct.
The
yes.
application. Okay.
Yep.
So one advantage I did find with the sheet set manager for web is you can actually do multiple published jobs at the same time.
Yes.
So that's another advantage of the web, which you can't do with the local version.
Yep. And downside, and you have to swap back and forth. You can't, if you use views to categorize your details, and you notice there is no tab for those views anymore, are there? So you have to switch back and forth to be able to add the views for your details if you use that methodology, and then move back to the web base to be able to plot it.
Okay. Good to know.
But both work.
And out of curiosity for you guys, do you also have to subscribe to the projects and desktop connector?
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah.
So when I always try to tell people, they're like, it's not working. It's because you did not subscribe to your project and desktop connector.
Yeah, you got to add that as a project.
Apparently my Windows doesn't want to work here.
Oh.
Because I'm sharing Zoom.
Yeah.
You can see it's still 11:15.
Right? It's pretty early.
Yeah.
It's 11:15.
Right, so apparently my status bar is not working. I can't switch to any. So anyways, you would click there and bring up your desktop connector, and down at the bottom, let's ask you what projects you want to subscribe to. I think it's turn. But yeah, anyways.
Yeah,
you still have to do that.
Yeah, the bonus, and I saw John's comment there. You could run multiple instances of the regular sheet set manager. The nice thing about the one on the web, it doesn't use your computer to process the job.
Right.
Which is absolutely fantastic. And it doesn't store the PDFs on, unless you tell it to. It can store the PDFs directly on the ACC website. So it doesn't even, nothing comes down to your computer, and it's wonderful.
Yeah. Yep, I noticed that as well. All right, we got 10 minutes.
I'll point out to make sure you wait for the latest web edited version of Sheet Set Manager to download. It's also why Thomas, he was saying, make sure if you are going to go in and edit something there, you lock it on the web. So that way nobody else tries to go in the same time and crash it.
Yeah.
What else
All
we
right.
got question-wise?
A question from Mike, because we have 8 minutes left. Is it possible to trim a surface profile in a profile view? I've been looking recently, but I don't think it's possible.
I don't think it's possible either, but let's give it a try. Uh, so there's a couple of things that I can think of. First is to do a mask. Can you do a mask?
Yeah, Mayo just said mask it.
So if I do a wipeout here, right, and then bring this to the top. So you can see you can do a wipeout. Can I bring a profile above as well? So yeah, so the draw order does work with wipeouts. So that's one option. The other option is just to create a new profile, especially if you're doing like a surface profile, right? I think, was that what he was talking about? Surface profiles? Yeah, surface profiles. So another option is just when you go create your surface profile, you know, say, hey, I want to start here and I want to end here. Right, and then we can add that in. So that's surface one. And then in the profile view, I'll go away. Profile view properties, and I can turn off the display of the existing ground, leave that one turned on. And then I have a surface profile that looks clipped, but it's not. I'm not sure if we can change the extent after the fact. I don't remember. Profile data. Can we change that? No. So once you set the start and end station, it's stuck. It doesn't look like there's a way to change that. So, but that would be another option as well. If you know, I don't want to see anything before this station, just go create another profile that starts at that station. Or use a
John
wipeout.
also said there's convert line work to mask block as a command to do this.
You could, but I would just use a wipeout. The convert line work to mask block is an undocumented command. It comes from AutoCAD architecture. I've played around with it. It's odd. Wipeouts are just so much easier for something like this. So the convert line work to mask block, you can mask one object and not another object or something like that. So it's a bit more complex. But yeah, go ahead, play with it for sure. Absolutely. I'm not saying don't. I'm just, in this case, I would just use a wipeout.
Mask block can alter the fonts and labels if you're masking something associated to some labels.
Yeah.
All right, so we got 5 questions here. Not gonna have time, I don't think, for all of them. So we'll go to actual definition ones. Since you've got alignment, will you please show an alignment crossing the parcel in the same site, and what happens when you move the alignment to a different site?
Yeah. So when I'm teaching folks about alignments, I always tell people never put them in a site. The only time to put them in a site is if you want them to subdivide parcels. So if I come in here and I go to my alignment creation tool, it's going to ask what site do you want it to go into? So I'm just going to choose from the drawing. I don't want to create a new one. Can I choose from the drawing? Pick from drawing, yeah. So that's the subdivision A. And then when I draw my alignment through here, all right, you can see it subdivides those parcels for me. Now, one thing to note, this was originally 101, 102, 103, 104, 105. What happens if I delete this alignment now? Which of those two parcels are going to remain? So remember, parcels are funky things. They are defined when an object, or they're defined when parcel segments enclose an area. And if you put in an alignment in a site, that alignment acts as a parcel segment. So if I take this alignment and I move it to a different site, it's up here somewhere. Why am I not seeing it? Maybe it's right click. Move to site, and I'm going to move it out of sites altogether. There is no site named none. It's just not in a site. Right? You can see 102, 103, 118, 105. So 104 disappeared and it became 118. Which layer should that be on? So again, going back to the previous topic. So I think that's what you're getting at, Tom. If it was something else, let me know. But yeah, that's again, don't put alignments in sites. The only time I put alignment in a site is when I'm using it to use with the create right of way command. Right.
Beautiful. And then Lisa asks, can you please explain the principle of using pin numbers?
And numbers? You're talking about like for plotting?
You remember the old carousel pins?
I
Oh,
never
yeah.
used one. I've heard
Oh,
people
so
talk about them.
we actually got my at a firm that was so hard up on their pencil drafting that when the pin plotters came out, you could actually buy pencils that would go in those carousel pins, and so you would actually be printing using it was like a spring-fed like piece of lead, and you could actually still do it with pencil, so they could go back and erase and do it without having to plot again.
Oh wow. Yeah, so the pen numbers, you had like a carousel of different pens that would plot with different weights. And when you plot, you would choose this pen and it would choose that pen and actually draw on the piece of paper rather than, like the plotting that we do nowadays.
And for those older folks who weren't around pin plotters, that Hallmark actually came out with make your own cards in the grocery stores that basically had a pin plotter and would grab different color pins to do the different colors you wanted to do on your own make your own card thing.
Yeah. So that's where the origin of the pens come from. It's just an old legacy term.
Yeah, that's
we
what
don't
Lisa
use it
said.
anymore.
Many drafters still use that term in their designs. Hey, use pin 6, pin 7. I, honest truth, in Revit do the same thing because in Revit we have 16 line weights, we call them, but they're not actually line weights because the weights change per scale. So I call them pins. You have 16 different pins. That pin might be a different thing at a different scale.
Right.
But yeah, it is an old legacy term for all the old people who had to do the pin plotter. If you screwed up an AutoCAD and 15 lines on top of each other, it would draw 15 lines on top of each other, and then it would tear through your paper. You'd start hitting the rubber below and bend your pen, and it was a total nightmare.
All right.
Yeah, some people
1
will.
minute.
Some people will call their layers pin. I've actually had clients call their layers pin 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, just because it's still, again, it's going back 30 years ago, saying, yeah, that's what we're talking about.
Right.
And according to Kyle, that's what Bentley does. Their line weights are actually called pin numbers.
All right.
So
Well,
we didn't get to 2 questions, but one is just a, hey, where do you think AI is going? The other one was about pipe networks, but we are at the bottom of the hour. So it's up to you, Brian, if you want to take those or not.
the AI, I don't know. I'm not sure where AI is going to go in the civil industry. I can see where it goes in creating construction documents or like specs for spec writing. If you have to write a bunch of specs, you can upload, previous specs that you've done for projects into AI and then say, hey, I've got this project that has these requirements, spit me out the specs, and then I can go through and double check them, make sure they're right. I might see it working there. Perhaps with like the grading optimization type tools that we have, that is definitely not AI right now, but perhaps going somewhere like that. It's going to be a while before we have the design my site button.
What are you talking about? We are not live humans. We are all AI, and this whole entire presentation.
And then exporting pipe network data for construction. I know you can export it out to a Navisworks file and it'll maintain a lot of the data. So if you bring in your pipes into a drawing, I think you have to bring the drawing into a 3D view. And then if you export it out to a Navisworks file, when you select the pipe, you'll have all the data for the pipe. It's been a really long time since I've done that though, and I don't even have Navisworks on this system. So it's not something I can test out.
How much data do you get when you export to AutoCAD and you get 3D elements for
You get
that?
3D elements.
That's just it. No data.
Yeah. You can put the what's it called? Something I don't use very often. Manage property sets on the pipes, but I don't know if those will export out to AutoCAD. I don't think they do.
I thought they did because the only reason I say that is I've been involved in way too many meetings with one building owner, said all the Civil 3D people had to export that out. So when they exported it to AutoCAD, they would have the data.
It might. I don't know where you would get that data from out of AutoCAD.
So I could be wrong, but I know that was a
But like I
big
said,
part
it's
of it.
not something I've ever played around with.
That's more or less almost that's bridging the gap between like map 3D and because you're able to assign data sets to the particular line work or basic AutoCAD line work and bring that into GIS with the data put
Right.
into it.
Right. But I don't know how it would work with just AutoCAD.
Yeah.
I don't know if you can see that data in AutoCAD or not. So, but I think Navisworks would probably be the best way to go with the 3D pipe data with our pipes with the data associated with them.
Yeah, but if you're trying to send that out to a fabricator, that's not going to give them crap either.
Right.
So I have a question. I know Autodesk is working on the Revit thing for doing what they're calling them. I'm going to call them not property sets. You guys just said that, so my brain's going there. But with data on ACC, so in ACC now we can actually export Revit building, and this just actually exports out a whole bunch of individual data, and therefore anybody can pull that data down. Is there anything like that for Civil 3D yet? Or are they still working on that only on the Revit world?
I haven't heard anything about it for Civil 3D yet.
Pull it. What do you mean by pull it down?
So literally, they're just taking all the Revit data, and they are going in and creating, I forget what they're calling it. I'm looking it up right now, but it's literally going to go in there and create a Revit file. But it's not a Revit file. It's just literally a whole bunch of data up there.
Is that the Forge?
No, well, it's part of Forge, but they're calling it a data exchange model.
Okay.
And there's two ways to do it. You can actually do the data exchange model of just the ACC data, which you can have set up to be automatically. But in Revit, there's an add-in button to say, hey, cool, let's go set this up to be a data exchange model. And it literally breaks all of it down into data. So you can open it up and be like, cool, I want to get the data for just the stairs or just the doors or whatever. So
And
I was
then
wondering if
potentially
there's
bring it
something like
into
that
whatever
for Civil 3D.
program you need.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm sorry, I do have to run.
Yeah.
I had a meeting
Yeah.
4 minutes ago, so my apologies.
No worries. Get out of here, Thomasy.
Later on.
Yeah, and Ian saying data exchange connector for Civil 3D. So I don't know, Mike, it might be something for you to look into because, and I have no idea if it's there for Civil 3D, but I know that is where Autodesk is starting to go. So in the Revit
Yeah,
world,
there's
we
been a
can
lot of
export
talk
that.
about it. I just haven't seen anything on it yet.
Yeah, I played with a little bit, and then I've brought some of that stuff into Power BI, and I can actually see all of the Revit content within Power BI and click on this, and that. I have no idea how Fabricator is going to get that, so I can't take like my Revit mechanical duct and send that to Fabricator, to my knowledge, not
Right.
using that data exchange model. But
All right. Well, we have gone over time. Thank you, everybody, for sticking with us. I think this was a great session. I really enjoyed it. So I'll post this up on my YouTube channel. Just look for Civil 3D Plus or C3D Plus. I don't remember what it is off the top of my head. Something like that. You can find it. If you don't know where it is, just reach out to me. And we will see you all again next month. Thanks, everyone.
thanks, everyone.